Day 300. Before I say anything else, I just want to say how awesome is it that we are 65 days away from the end of this series. It's literally been a year of San Francisco, folks. I have covered the most fascinating, intricate, not so well known topics, along with all the mainstream stuff as well. And obviously, I've got my Giants colors on, right? My Salvadoran Guayabera in orange and my black hat. I guess what I want to say is if there's a topic that you want me to cover in the next 65 days, I do have a few slots left that are not already recorded. Shoot me an email, Eric@EricCurryCo. All right, so on to our topic of the day. Let's talk about the East Bay. You might think, why am I bringing up something that's not related to San Francisco when this is a series quite literally called 365 Days of San Francisco? So there's a few reasons. One, this is the first of a 3-part series that I'm doing about the adjacent areas to San Francisco, Marin County, East Bay, and the Peninsula. And I'll explain everything in each video. But that's one reason, is that these are the 3 areas that are next to San Francisco. I think it's important to know something about them, but also if you live in San Francisco, chances are that even though it's very easy to never leave the city and to have your entire life there, I mean, if you travel, if you want to hop on a plane, you're going to have to leave San Francisco. So that's just one. But I've always felt that you should have some kind of working knowledge about the things going on in the periphery. Also, San Francisco has gone through an insane wave of gentrification in the last 15, 20 years. A lot of the people that made San Francisco what it is, if they are lucky, live in one of these areas if they didn't get pushed out further. So the other thing is that while San Francisco, I will make this claim, has had a very large influence on all of these areas also have an influence on San Francisco. So even though San Francisco defines the culture, the East Bay actually does as well, which allow me to continue on to the topic. So the East Bay area across the Bay Bridge from San Francisco. Let me see if I get this correctly. It goes like Oakland, Alameda, and then Berkeley, Richmond, and then Crockett, Carquinez, Vallejo. I probably missed a few. So Hercules, Rodeo, Fairfield. That's the East Bay. That's the East Bay. El Cerrito, all these little pockets. So I would argue that I wouldn't argue, it's actually a fact. The East Bay is probably, it is the most diverse of it's become a lot more diverse than San Francisco. I would say that that's probably the number one place that people kind of move to if they can't afford San Francisco. The other 2 areas are different, and I'll explain. But the East Bay, and let's talk about Oakland specifically, I mean, this is where the Black Panthers were founded, folks. This is the epicenter of radical progressive activism in San Francisco. And because so many families in Oakland can trace their roots and have some connection to San Francisco, I can't make a series about San Francisco without including the East Bay, particularly Oakland. So the Coliseum is in Oakland. I know that they still do concerts there. I don't think the Oakland A's are still out of there, unfortunately. But the other thing about the East Bay, when you leave San Francisco, Embarcadero BART, the immediate next station is going to be West Oakland, and BART extends all the way to Dublin Pleasanton. So Bay Area Rapid Transit. And if you take a flight, not so common, but if you take a flight out of the Oakland Airport, You might want to hop on BART to do that. So that's, again, I barely scratched the surface about the East Bay, area. The last thing that I will say is that, well, I guess the last couple of things is that the East Bay is known for having much better weather than San Francisco. I would say, actually, I that's weather is better is subjective. What I realized about the East Bay is that it's about 10 to 15 degrees warmer. It tends to be 10 to 15 degrees warmer than San Francisco at any given moment in the East Bay. And that's because they don't get the breeze always, because they're not always as close to the coast. Because it goes a lot more inland. The East Bay, or Oakland, it's massive. It is absolutely huge and massive. And like, I don't say this one way or another because it's not like all parts of San Francisco are really pretty, but there are large parts of the East Bay that are like fields. Like, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. You can almost see like other side of the tracks. You don't get that as much in San Francisco because it's gotten so gentrified, unless you go to certain parts of like Bayview, Hunters Point. There's larger parts than that in the East Bay. I said I was going to say a couple more things, so I'll throw another thing out there because I do have two more things I want to add. The East Bay is not as transit friendly as San Francisco. Okay, so don't be cautious about going out to the East Bay without a car. People aren't going to like this, but based on my own experiences, I'm born and raised in San Francisco, in the Bay Area, and I've had issues sometimes out in Oakland. So just be careful, okay? Not a place you want to get stuck at without a car, and not a place you want to just be hanging around at. They also, like, it's a city. The East Bay kind of tends to close up earlier than San Francisco, and San Francisco is notorious for closing up early. Okay, so finally, the last point that I want to make is that the East Bay, to me, it has this feeling of like freedom. I actually really like the vibes in the East Bay. So whereas San Francisco kind of has this very like gritty, grindy, like I can work hard and make things happen kind of energy, the East Bay kind of alleviates some of that. It's a lighter feeling that I've always described as, again, it feels more free and it's nice to get a little escape from San Francisco. The other two places have quite different energy, and I will talk about those shortly.